why is the VIX called as the fear index? Now, there can be one type of explanation where I'll tell you, okay, like how the VIX is calculated and how and why it is called the fear index, or I'll just show you one image or rather one graph, which is about the VIX in relation to the S&P 500. Let's see how it looks like. So here is the graph of the S&P 500 and VIX. Now, to make some assumptions about it, and before that, I'll just try to explain it in a manner. On the left side, you can see the scale of the S&P 500. Now, the S&P 500 is the one in blue, and it goes all the way below 2,500 till 4,700. That is the scale of the S&P 500. On the right side, we have the scale for VIX, which, as you had just seen a few minutes earlier, is from 10 to 80 in the past 5 years. And the VIX is, of course, is in the same color as before, which is in magenta. Now, this is how the VIX and the S&P 500 go about. Now, you should have realized that, okay, there is something weird going on. The VIX and the S&P 500 are not exactly friends and they do not follow the same trend line for that matter. In fact, it is quite the opposite. So let us take one example. At the start of 2019, US and China had a trade war wherein they were imposing certain tariffs and certain restrictions on each other, which resulted in nervousness among the traders of the Wall Street. And what happened was the S&P 500 declined. You can see over here in blue, the S&P 500 started declining. At the same time, you can see that the VIX actually increased, and it is perfectly in relation to the S&P 500. It is a near instantaneous reaction, as you can see over here. So why is that so? If you think about it, when we said that the VIX is sort of the market's expectation, how volatile the index will be in the future. So as the S&P 500 started declining, people were scared and they thought that, okay, there is something going on. This is an unexpected event. And so we should not be in the market. So there was a sell off, as you can see, in represented by the decline. And this resulted in the underlying options having an effect. Now, as you know, an option writer will think that, okay, if it is a very risky asset for that matter, or if the future is uncertain, the option writer would require some more premium or some incentive to actually write a certain option. So, in that sense, the option premiums rose. And since the VIX looks at the index options, even the VIX rose over here. So that is somewhat the relation between the S&P 500 and VIX. Now further, when you go all the way up till 2020, when the pandemic was declared in March, again there was a massive decline in the S&P 500 index. And as you know, nobody knew at that point of time where the market will be. There was a massive uncertainty, which led to the rise in the VIX as well. As a sort of confirmation, now you might think that, okay, this might be a coincidence, right? It doesn't always happen. You are right in a way, but then on a majority level, in a majority of cases, we have seen that when the S&P 500 declines, the traders are ruled by the fear, and which results in a very uncertain environment wherein we do not know where the index will be in the future, and thus the VIX also rises, and hence the volatility rises. So similarly, when at the start of 2022, when there was an escalation between Russia and Ukraine. The same thing happened. The index declined, and at the same time, the VIX also rose. But then you can also see with time, as and when the new information comes in, they start processing this information and they try to understand, and hence that uncertainty level is sort of decreased. And in time, the volatility also decreases in that manner. And hence, every time it did rise, but then the VIX declined also. So that is why I said that before, that the VIX tries to stay low, but there might be certain unexpected events which can lead to a sharp increase in the VIX. So yes, and you can see in a majority of cases, this is due to negative news for that matter. So that is why the VIX has this name of the fear index. The VIX will tell you how much the traders are fearful for that matter. So this is a short explanation of why it is called the fear index.